Hello and welcome into Pat's Latest. I'm your host, Mike Gambardella, and after some time of getting the fun questions and the prognostications of what the Patriots will look like in 2025, it's time to ask some hard questions about what's going on in New England before taking a strong look at two of the top rookies from this year's class. Before we get into everything, make sure you go down and subscribe for our channel. Give us a like if you like what you hear, and get down in the comments and let us know what you think about the Patriots offseason thus far. We start today by asking the tough question of, is it too much on Drake May right now? This team has completely, been renovated, for lack of a better term. Bringing in Mike Vrabel has been the facelift that this team obviously needed from a leadership and culture standpoint. Going out in free agency and spending a ton of money, revamping the defense, getting them back to where they were just 3 years ago, and actually looking at that team that made the playoffs, bringing back Josh McDaniels was the right step to get this team back on track when he was able to lead a playoff charge with Mac Jones at the helm. So, looking at additions, whether it be Stephon Diggs for the wide receiver, Will Campbell, who we'll talk about in a little bit at left tackle, Morgan Moses on the other side, Travion Henderson added to the backfield. There is a lot of things added around second-year signal caller Drake May. And yes, he has said everything absolutely perfect this offseason. He is going to be surrounded by more talent. He is going to be surrounded by new head coaches, additionally having head coaches at position groups like Doug Marrone and Josh McDaniels, the OC. But is there a lot starting to be put on Drake May's plate? A guy who, has not started a full season in the NFL, that, had a fair amount of interceptions and double digits last year. Are you putting a lot on him? And again, this will fall to both Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels to bring him along slowly. He's going to have a new playbook to learn again, after working with Alex Van Pelt last year. And, Drake May spoke on this or late last week, I should say. He said, I think there's enough pressure playing the position in this league. And when he's asked specifically if there was more pressure going from year one to year two, he said there's guys around here that want to make plays and can make plays for you, so I don't think there's any added pressure. Again, I think that's the very coached up answer. I think it's very objective to say obviously there's more pressure because you bring in a new head coach, you add more around you, that there's more pressure to go from 4 wins to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins, 10 wins. Can you talk about the playoffs? And again, that is going to be very tough for a team that won just 4 games a year ago. But also, I think watching what the Washington Commanders did last year by bringing in the new head coach, the defensive minded, focusing on that side of the ball, letting the young quarterback do his thing, and adding talent around him, there is a pathway forward. Drake May also went on to say that I think there's a belief every week you're going to bring it. And I think that if there's any added pressure, you want it. You want the ball in my hands when it's crunch time. So again, giving the right answer, but I think again saying if there's added pressure, he wants it. So again, saying the right thing. I think there's absolutely going to be that added pressure. Teams are going to come after Drake May now, knowing that, look, their Patriots can now run the ball. They've got the offensive line to do that. They're going to have to send a lot of pressure and get him off his game. Drake May's going to have to move around a lot out of the pocket. And he did well last season to do that. He's going to need to do even more of it this year. And I think, again, there is a lot being added to Drake May's plate. I do believe he's up for the challenge. But again, this is just a second-year quarterback with a handful of starts under his belt. So it would be interesting to see what that ends up playing out as, especially in the early part of the season. The other part, whether it's added pressure, is because of such changeover with this roster. And we've already talked about having those 11 potentially new starters on both sides of the ball, between those 22 on offense and defense. And really, that new in New England is going to stand for new players left and right. And I think specifically when you look at this offense, that's what you want to see how it starts to coalesce. I think defensively, it's going to begin and end with Gonzalez on the back end, shutting down potentially one half of the field at cornerback, seeing what Milton Williams can do as your big money man up front, and really the type of scheme that Mike Vrabel wants to run. The opposite side is how it comes together. Is Stefan Diggs ready on week one? I think from what we've seen, practice videos and everything else on social, that yes, Stefan Diggs should be ready to go. Then it levels down to say, well, what's his relationship and how is it working with Drake May? And does having viable wide receiver options outside open things up for Pop Douglas? Does Hunter Henry continue to take that step forward, or does Austin Hooper, who had a good relationship last year, end up taking snaps away from him? Obviously, the offensive line becomes a big key with that. Garrett Bradbury at center now, at least for the time being, getting that right guard spot completely shored up, having Enweno kick in from tackle with Morgan Moses out there, Will Campbell obviously, and figuring out that left guard spot, whether that's Cole Strange, Layden Robinson, C.D. Sow, or potentially somebody else, and seeing how the running back rotation starts to work out. And, Travion Henderson obviously will get, I would say, needs to get at least 12 touches per game, and that can be between design things out of the backfield, swing passes, etc., getting him just handoffs inside, outside as well. But, there's a lot of new faces, and that's why it's great to see Mike Vrabel prioritizing getting as much practice time as possible. The quote unquote voluntary veterans camp, getting all the rookies in there as soon as they can. This is a team that has what we call opportunity in front of them, and it does not always present itself in this certain fashion. I think in the NFL, they will always say there's always opportunity any given Sunday, but this Patriots team, especially from what it was a year ago, is completely night and day different, and that newness can really be a positive factor for them moving forward here. Additionally, I would like to take a quick moment to point out Will Campbell and what this rookie is going to mean to the New England Patriots. And a lot of people, especially through the draft process, said we don't want to take an offensive tackle, go all in, take Ashton Genty, trade back, go get Tet McMillan, whatever it's going to be. Will Campbell deserved to be the number 4 pick in this draft. He was, and he will get a chance to show it. And I think a lot of what is coming up now is not just what you're seeing, with Will Campbell and his performance on the field, but I think him as a person and him as a leader is really going to make the difference at the end of the day. And it actually trickles up in this instance from his offensive line coach at LSU. What Brad Davis had to say, the quote was great in saying, if you have a rare talent like that, so kind words to start, with those kind of traits, and you support him, surround him with people who are like him, then you just let him do what he does best, and that's lead. Now, the fact that his offensive line coach is not talking about, his ability to pick up the blitz, to shed and pick up multiple blocks. He's talking about his leadership ability, and this is a rookie coming in with really having an opportunity to do so because Mike Vrabel has cleaned house. 5 of those 6 captains from last year are gone. So yes, I would not be surprised to see first and second year players with C's on their chest, and not just on the back for C for Campbell, but up front the C for captain. And yeah, it could take a little while, but there's nothing to say that you couldn't be able to do that in year one. And go back and check out just 3 episodes ago, we talked about potentially looking at who those captains could be. And Mike Vrabel actually chimed in as well, saying winners come in all shapes and sizes. We're going to have leaders. Leaders are going to identify themselves. I think Mike Vrabel is completely opening this up to say who is going to step up. He went on to add that I know that our staff have the ability to create winners, and competitors are probably easier than it is to create leaders. And the leaders are going to identify themselves. The leaders are going to be the ones that define the culture. And again, Mike Vrabel's talked about that culture constantly, and that's what you want to hear and now potentially start to see out on the practice field as well as these OTAs start to ramp up here in a few weeks. Finally, added the culture will be what drives and gives us the results that we're all after. Again, process-based driven system here in the NFL, what you want from a head coach, taking it step by step and getting you to a point where you can have success as a cohesive unit. And I think that starts with Will Campbell at that left tackle spot. I think, you know, there's a lot of people who will continue to point, oh, the short arms and this and that. You know, you could poke holes at every player who was drafted in this past NFL draft and previous ones beyond that as well. Whether Cam Ward didn't have more than one season with Ashton Genty, could have been taller. You know, there's always something there. I think production is what sells it at the end of the day. And count me in as somebody who's going all chips in on Will Campbell right now. Finally, we look at not Kyle's Killer Lemonade, but Kyle Williams and the third round draft pick from Washington State. And looking at it, for me, the big choice for the Patriots was, do you address wide receiver in the second round and then running back in the third, or vice versa? Obviously, they went with versa in that situation. And what for me, it's always going to stack up against is, you know, what Luther Burden ends up doing for the Chicago Bears, because you could have taken him at that point. Now, obviously, that means you would not have gotten Trevion Henderson, which the Patriots very much were in on from the jump. So, really, it takes a little bit out of that, anyways. But what Kyle Williams is able to progress as not only will be as that really number two option potentially as a wide receiver in this offense, but wanting to see what this front office is able to do, you know, as a talent evaluation system, as coaches who are able to get players from point A to point B, but also identifying players who are at 8 or 9s and having a chance to get to 10, as opposed to 6 or 7s who are flying under the radar who you think can get there. And that's why the question is Kyle Williams a guy like Amon St. Brown, who's drafted in the 4th round and is overlooked, and that's why Williams slips to 3 and you get an impact player? Or is he, unfortunately, at this time, another Jalen Polk, where it's a 2nd or 3rd rounder who you think could do big things, maybe has, you know, not the fastest times in the world, but is known as a good, you know, guy with his hands and able to bring in contested catches. And does that translate at the next level? Unfortunately for Jalen Polk, it did not in year 1. He'll have a chance to do it in year 2. But that's what you want to see from Kyle Williams. And I think the big thing here is what the front office is evaluating at. And the big story is what came from Kyle Williams in his bowl game this past year, when, you know, his coach is leaving because he just got a job at Wake Forest, whether his quarterback's hurt and he's got to play with somebody that he doesn't really know or have a lot of experience and is a younger guy on the roster. It's meaningless for Williams and only presents a chance to get injured. He makes a deliberate choice to pick his team to go out and play, and ends up coming down with 10 balls, 172 yards with the backup quarterback and a new head coach. That, I think, is what Mike Rabel is talking about with culture, what he's after, and what hopefully Kyle Williams can give to you at the next level as well. That'll do it for us here on this episode of Pat's Latest. Again, make sure you go down for subscribe for our channel. Go back and check out our old episodes and get in the comments and let us know what you think of Kyle Williams, Will Campbell, and the rest of the New England Patriots 2025 draft class. We'll continue to have everything for you on the Pats throughout this offseason. Fight on, Foxborough.